So we're back with Global Business Report. The cement sector in Nigeria is the third largest industrial energy consumer and the second largest industrial CO2 emitter around the world. Rising global population, industrialization and infrastructure needs will further drive up demand for cement and concrete and increase the carbon footprint of cement production. In sub-Saharan Africa, population growth and the growing middle class are driving forces for greater cement demand. The demand for infrastructure, housing and commercial buildings has contributed to the growth prospects of the industry. This overview of the industry in sub-Saharan Africa is contained in a new report released by Vetiva Capital Management. Joining me now to discuss this report is Abigail Alabi. Abigail Alabi. She is the industrial goods analyst with Vetiva Capital. It's good to have you. Morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Let's put some cement. This is hardcore, hard concrete, brick and mortar industrial goods conversation. So let's start with the COP27 summit in Egypt as we speak 2 weeks. Your report says the cement sector is the second largest CO2 emitter globally. Anything been done to reduce that?
A couple of things currently are being done to be able to minimize the carbon footprint from the cement sector. One of them is improving the energy efficiency by switching from fossil-based fuel to low-carbon fuels like biomass and biodiesel. We've also seen the world also evolve to green concrete. So green concrete is a eco-friendly concrete that makes use of industrial waste to be able to partially substitute for the standard or the traditional concrete that we're currently using. Additionally, we also have the implementation of carbon tax as well. Carbon tax is a tax levied on large industrial organizations for each ton of greenhouse gas that they emit. And currently, there are about just 27 countries that actually have significant carbon tax or that have implemented significant carbon tax on those industrial corporations currently.
27 countries around the world, and I'm not sure if we have anyone here except South Africa. Perhaps they just
South Africa has a carbon tax.
To start scratching the surface.
Yeah, we're still scratching the surface.
So the global cement market is still very huge, roughly $337 billion, and that could reach almost $500 billion by the year 2027. So if you look at the growth forecast of about 5% for CAGR here during 2022-2027 period, what's triggering this growth in cement consumption, cement market globally?
Over the last few years, we have seen increased construction activities globally, especially in the Asian Pacific region and also in the African region. We have seen large-scale projects in major cities in those regions as well. For instance, in Africa, we have seen various economies or various administrations make concerted efforts to bridge the infrastructure gap in most of their countries, and that has significantly driven cement demand as well as cement growth in Africa, Asia Pacific, and the world in general.
Yeah. So this will continue, by the way.
Yeah, it will continue. Definitely, it's going to continue.
Will that growth be more pronounced in developing economies such as Nigeria or in Africa?
Yes, we have a very, very strong population growth with the younger demography, and we also have like an increased demand for infrastructure because we have like a posture or we have like low investments in infrastructure, and all of that points to, or all of that reflects on tapped growth and growth prospects for Nigeria and also the sub-Saharan African region as well.
Well, everybody still want to have their own homes.
Yes, everybody wants to have their own. Currently,
some folks want to have a second one.
Yes, so currently we have like a deficit of 22 million homes in Nigeria. And that means we have like 22 million people who do not have homes currently in the country. And that just gives us, or that just reflects the fact that we have a long way to go, or we have like more legroom for growth in the Nigerian infrastructure developments in Nigeria.
So if we look at the global cement production, China is still the king.
Yes, they are currently the world or the dominant power in cement production currently.
Okay, so what's that? What's the reason behind that?
China, which has the world's largest population and is one of the fastest growing economies, over time they've been experiencing rapid industrialization over the last few years. And because of that, they are highly dependent on the use of cement for construction in their mega cities and also for large infrastructure projects. So because of this industrialization that we have seen in China, we have seen them increase their demand for cement, thereby also increasing production, consumption, and we've seen that we've seen industrialization affect the cement production in China.
So as we continue to develop from being a developing country to being a developed country in sub-Saharan Africa, most likely our own cement consumption will go up.
Yes.
And we need to produce more.
Yes, we need to produce more. We definitely need to produce more. Currently, most of the cement plants are never operating at full capacity right now because we do not have like enough of. We are still seeing investment in the cement industry. For instance, Bar Cement is also making plans also increase their production capacity, be able to match the cement demand in the economy. So we are also seeing the fact that cement players are also taking advantage or looking forward to the fact that there are still a lot of growth potentials in the economy. They're also trying to add more to their production capacity to meet up with that demand.
But cement consumption in Nigeria still lags its peers.
Yes, it's still lagging behind because we do not have sufficient investments in infrastructure. We do not have sufficient investment in infrastructure to match this significant demand and or to match the strong population that we have currently in the country. It has been estimated that Nigeria needs to spend about $100 billion annually to be able to meet up or to be able to have like a sufficient infrastructure development in the country. And we have barely done a fraction of that over the last decade. So we still have a long way to go with our cement consumption.
I agree. But again, you have cement GDP outpacing even the country's GDP.
Yeah,
what does that tell me?
So over the past few years, we have seen the public sector drive cement demand because of the because of infrastructure projects or capital projects. However, we have seen a significant amount of cement demand shift to the private sector, mainly also, especially in the real estate sector. And this is because we have seen, or due in the previous year and also in the first half of this year, we saw a decline in borrowing cost and also low yields in the fixed income market. And this spurred or this renewed investors' interest in the private sector and also in the real estate activities, also in the real estate sector. And because of that, we saw real estate activities go up, thereby driving cement demand and also cement growth.
Interesting that despite the growth in cement GDP, it seems Nigeria's weak revenue is something here. Walk me through what I can call the capital expenditure chart. What would that mean? Anything to help everyone understand the Nigeria's cement market industry a bit better?
Okay, over the last...
Okay, that's the capex implementation.
Yeah, that's capex.
So if we look at 2015 to 2021, walk me through this bar chart.
Okay, so over time, we have seen that capex implementation has historically been below 70%. And like I said, this is also due to weak revenue generation. We've also seen increased recurrent expenditure and also higher debt service charge that we have been experiencing over the last few years, widening the shortfall between actual and budgeted capital expenditure. So that has also worsened capex execution as well. And for the main part of this year, we expect that capex expenditure will also fall below 70%, with the main risk still remaining weak revenue generation, increase in recurrent expenditure, and also the ballooning debt stock that has also increased our debt service charge. And for context, out of the 5.4 trillion that was earmarked in the 2022 budget for capital expenditure, only 773 billion has been released as of July this year. And has also been estimated that Nigeria is going to spend about 92% of its revenue on debt service charge. That just gives a clear picture of what we are going to expect this year in the area or in terms of capital expenditure. Hopefully in the next or in the coming year, we expect that we would see improvements in capital expenditure, given the fact that we have a new administration coming in. So we will most likely expect them to pick up from where the previous one has left off.
Okay, let's get a few figures and shoot through a few things through one or two African countries. Let's look at Ghana, Kenya, for example, or Ghana cement industry. What's the outlook from there?
So Ghana's cement industry has been doing really well. In 2021, the cement demand grew significantly, supported by a 5.7% growth in construction activities. And that was because we saw infrastructure development, which is the major priority for the Ghanaian cement industry. However, they are still struggling with high cost of production due to continuous devaluation or depreciation in their currency. Ghanaian cedi has currently been devalued by almost 50%. And that also severely affected the cost of building materials, as almost or more than 80% of their building materials are being imported. And as a result, to protect the margins, we've seen cement producers transfer this cost to consumers to be able to protect their margins, also to maintain, to keep the business afloat. Nonetheless, despite this increased cost of production, despite these challenges in cost of production, we expect that the public sector demand for capital projects will drive or will still support cement demand in the long run for the Ghanaian cement industry. And
just as we're having this conversation, Ghana's inflation data just came in. So I'm just going to read that because Ghana's consumer inflation reached a new 21-year high of 40.40% annually last month after hitting 37.2% in the month of September. Data says the Statistics Office says today that that's after a month of rapid currency depreciation deepened the country's economic crisis. The news just coming is Ghana's October inflation at 40.40%. That's a 21-year high. After breaching 37.2% in September on the back of the country's currency crisis, depreciation in the city, which has lost about 55, roughly 60% since the start of the year. We got about 1 minute to touch on Africa's largest, most advanced economy, which is South Africa. What's the cement industry looking like there?
So for South Africa's cement industry, they have been doing pretty well. But after the economic downturn in 2020, the South African government recognized the role of economic or infrastructure developments in economic recovery, and hence they decided to create the infrastructure fund and also the national infrastructure plan to be able to achieve the government's objective of bridging the infrastructure deficit in the South African cement industry. So our outlook for the South African cement industry still remains strong, as we also see protectionist policies by the South African government, as they implemented a ban on the use of imported building materials for state-awarded projects. So we expect to see that these policies and this implementation or these plans that the South African government has outlined would drive growth in the long term for South African cement industry.
Very interesting scenario. Thank you so much, Abigail Alabi, industrial goods analyst with Vertiva Capital Management. Thank you so much for bringing some industrial goods cement to the conversation this morning on Global Business Report.